Okay. Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you very much for joining the best practices for meals in the classroom. Today, I'm doing a panel style session. I have two great panelists, Leslie Young with the school district of Sitka and Diane Russo with the Mat-Su Borough School District. Today, we're going to just be going over some questions. I have created some questions, and then at the end of the questions, Leslie was able to send us a little clip of this. I'm not sure what to call it. It's a cute little thing, kind of a saying or a thing to motivate folks to have meals in the classroom. Anyways, so first I'd like to introduce Diane Russo with the Mat-Su Borough School District. Thank you very much, Diane, for joining us. And Leslie Young with the Sitka School District. Leslie doesn't have video, so that's okay. So during all of this pandemic that's hit, meals in the classroom weren't widely. There were a number of districts that promoted meals in the classroom, especially like breakfast, to get kids to eat breakfast and whatnot. But it wasn't a lot of districts had a lot of school teachers and staff had their apprehensions of eating in the classroom for whatever reasons. So, but this pandemic has really kind of opened a door for a little bit more acceptance, just, to keep the social distancing, to make sure the students are eating, and just to be able to keep an eye on their students. So I have a few questions that I wanted to go over, and so I'll ask the question, and then if Diane and Leslie would answer those on how it applies in their districts, that would be great. So one of the first questions that is commonly asked was, what were some of the challenges on starting to serve meals in the classroom? Go ahead, Diane.
Okay. We did have, and I'm sorry, I look over here, but my video camera's over here. So if you're waving at me, I won't be able to see you. So we did have some challenges that to start with. Some of the main challenge was to get the school staff themselves on board with us on how eating in the classroom would be delivered, or how to manage that and what kind of procedures. I think at first they just assumed our one little person in the kitchen could do it all by herself. Mainly they're women, sorry, but our staff do it by themselves. And it's like, that was just not, you just can't do it, that many students all by yourself and Kurt. So our main challenges were to get the staff on board, meaning the principal, the teachers, and that, and we, to be able to have the staff assist us in getting all of these meals to the classrooms. And we actually had them do like offer versus serve training, civil rights training for nutrition services, so that they were like an extension of us. And so that was the biggest challenge and hurdle, I think, is just getting the school on board.
Great, thank you. Leslie?
Yeah, I concur with Diane. There was a lot of that, like, why is this my issue? And I know everybody got dumped on with a lot of stuff, but one of our schools already ate meals in the classroom, so that was pretty helpful model that they didn't really change much. They kind of actually don't serve meals in the classroom because their breakfast is served in a common area, and then they had lunch in the classroom, and we went to grab and go. So for them, they actually did not even have to do meals in the classroom, whereas all the other schools ended up having to do their breakfast is pretty much in the classroom. But some of the issues that do come up, other than identifying staffing, is that there's more food waste in the classroom that, you know, a lot of people don't recognize that, you know, when the kids finish eating, there's going to be more trash. And so making sure that janitorial and, like I say, all those team members are on board for the additional cleaning and sanitation, and, you know, making sure that that trash doesn't stay until the next morning and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of packaging, you know, which is obviously then leads into that trash. And then at our high school levels, their complaint was more so that, you know, even though meals are free, they're not the choice that they would get. And so as much as free drove up the participation, choice drove down the participation. So it was kind of a, you know, even though we got more kids, we actually got more kids that are like, but it's free, you know, so you got that kind of thing. But it is staffing that, and identifying the process of getting the meals to the classroom, and then what to do with the leftover meals and leftover food, and, you know, just all those little strategic pieces of going. That was some of our biggest hurdles. But you got to identify them quickly and communicate them quickly.
Mhm.
And I
Thank you.
had more to
Diane?
add. Leslie kind of touched upon it. We had to go and buy more equipment to be able, for some schools, and how they deliver to the classroom. So we had to buy, I don't know, 50, 60 busing tubs, new carts that could go down the hallway to deliver. You know, there was that time and temperature challenges too. How fast could we get the meals to the classroom in a timely manner and keep them warm, hot foods hot, cold foods cold. So those were different things too. The thing that the principals had to come to decide also was the meal schedules. And this year we've expanded our schedules, meaning our staff might be only a 5 or 6 hour staff, but the meal schedules expanded beyond their 5 or 6 hours, because they're trying to, you know, mitigate, you know, contact and things like that. So that we ended up, our staff worked more hours just to be able to be there from start to finish. That's another issue that came up.
Great, thank you. And actually, some of those items that both you and Leslie had mentioned is kind of part of my next question, which was who might need to be involved to get the best practices in place so that the meal service in the classroom is successful. Leslie, would you like to touch on that more?
Certainly. Well, it really comes from the boss. Superintendent has to say, this is what happens and this is what needs to be done. And then it kind of delegates down from there. So as long as the boss says, let's do it, let's figure out how to get it done and be compliant and get, you know, the most bang for our buck. But it is getting that buy-in all the way down to the teacher in the classroom to say, okay, and keeping it simple and making it attainable for all staff to participate, whatever their role is. But it is superintendent, principal. We are fortunate enough to have AmeriCorps members, so they are an integral part of doing a lot of our stuff. We have our contracted Nana staff, which is our kitchen people. But, you know, we had a gap in our high school where we didn't have students. And so a lot of our paraprofessionals that first hour were spent delivering meals. So it's getting, like say, getting them trained and compliant and getting that process down. But it really touches on everybody. And then of course, back to the school secretary to enter it all in and make sure that we're counting correctly and matching our numbers with the kitchen and what we served. So.
And you had mentioned too a little bit ago about custodial
yes.
assistance to make sure that trash is picked up after. Okay.
Yeah, it almost hits on every person that's in the school meal service when it's done in the classroom. I mean, it really is everybody. I mean, the counselors to making sure that kids know that if they're in another class, or, I mean, it's all those pieces of making sure. I mean, it's everybody.
So big involvement.
Yes.
Okay, Diane, how about yourself?
Well, everything Leslie said, and we use rosters for the classrooms, especially if it's not our staff person themselves delivering. Because looking at Laura reminds me, we have food allergies and children with those medical statements. So we had to have the rosters with those children marked on there, like this is their special meal in this tub that goes to that child. So the school nurse also was really heavily involved in making sure that the children were getting their specialty meals as needed. So, but yeah, the principal, the aides that help with deliveries, even our own staff. We just had some staff that's been with us actually for many years, and they're used to doing things a certain way. And they, it's hard to get them to break their habits and say, no, we're going to change how we're how we're serving these students. But this is a year for change, and so we broke a lot of molds this year, and everyone's used to change now. It's kind of the positive thing that has come out of it.
Yeah, I would say there's pretty much, for me, a new thing every day.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. My next question was, and actually you both had touched on this a little bit in your other answers, but how are the meals brought to the classroom? Diane, you had mentioned you had to buy some new equipment. Would you like to elaborate on that?
And so there's actually three main ways that this is occurring, and I'm referring only to the elementary level. The secondaries, they actually still, middle schools and high schools, they actually still come down to the kitchen. We just use mitigation, social distancing, and spread out meal service times in order to accommodate that. But for the elementary, we have some students are still coming to the kitchen. Again, it's spread out meal times, and they have to social distance. They pick up their meal, they go back to their classroom and eat. We have classroom aides and maybe teachers, other staff that come down to the kitchen, and we have tubs set up, like this is for Mrs. Smith, this is for Mr. Grant, and they come and they pick up, and it's that aid for that classroom, and everything's done with these social distancing factors. And there's a roster with each tub that they mark off who received a meal, how many went, and they got to bring that roster back with the tub. And then we have carts where our person is going to the classrooms. So we had to buy, again, more carts and tubs and hot holding carts that we roll down the hallway, and they go classroom to classroom and serve each classroom individually. And so the children aren't intermingling with each other. So those are the main three ways that we are serving.
Great, thank you. Leslie?
Yeah, it all seems pretty similar. We definitely, our elementaries are not eating in the classroom because they all have breakfast in a common big area in the morning when they come in. But it's our high school and middle schools that are eating in the classroom, which has evidently not something they've ever done ever, and it's a change for staff and everything. But similarly, they kitchen prepare the meals, and then they break it up by classroom, and then an aide delivers to the classroom, and then the teacher serves the meal. And then it's like a pretty good process. We have some of our bigger, schools, or the two bigger schools there, they divide it up, and they have a wing for each person to manage, and so it can get quickly and swiftly. It's like, you take care of these 8 classrooms, you do these 8 classrooms, and you do these 8 classrooms, and then everything gets done there and gets timely. We have one gap where it all pretty much is there in a timely fashion, and that's, like I say, it's just those logistical things. And most of our meals are really still kind of grab and go. They're all packaged like a little bag. So if the kid eats in the classroom, they eat in the classroom. If they don't want to consume it all, they can keep it in their little bag and put it in their backpack and take it home. Our middle school students stay in one classroom all day, and the teacher rotates. So that makes it pretty easy for them to have all their stuff in one area at all times. And our high school students, they only have 3 classes a day, but they switch the 3 times between their classrooms. But they know it's between this class is when they'll get their food. So, and again, it's always in a little sack so they can have it. And it is grab and go, but it's ready to eat. So it's not heat and serve or anything like that. So that's pretty easy. And at the end of the day, they have the grab and go lunch that they go and get and they take home with them. But it is a logistical thing for the classrooms. And then it's just dealing with the extra garbage that usually ends up filling the trash cans while they're there. So.
Great, thank you. And actually, Leslie, you had mentioned a few items and that'll lead right into my next question. What type of food containers or trays are used to serve the meals or package the meals in? Leslie, would you like to elaborate?
Yeah, it's actually kind of a bone of contention with the way our world is going. It's still a lot of styrofoam and plastic, and paper bags are fine, but it's just unfortunately if we had more time and resources, we could probably buy better recycling items, but it's what we got, and it's unfortunately what we're using, and which unfortunately produces a lot of waste. But that's pretty much most of the stuff. Our Pacific High School has a few better choices. They have some of the cardboard boxes, but the problem with some of the packaging is that it obviously the quality of the meal diminishes. So on our Pacific High, they have 30 students, so it's a smaller group. But when they package up the meal to give to the child to then take to the classroom, like any to go, it's the moisture that gets built up, and it's soggy the fries and that kind of stuff. So there's those logistical things, but it's kind of like takeout. You just have to your expectations have to be just a little bit lower on the quality. But other than that, everything seems to be going good.
And Diane, how about yourself? What kind of containers are you guys using, or trays?
Well, we're doing a couple different things, mainly for elementary and our supper programs. We're fortunate enough to have a central kitchen, which is, Anchorage School District has that as well, but I don't know if that is what they're using at the moment. Excuse me. So we have it's our overwrapped or individualized food trays that have the entree and a hot vegetable in it. And then we have a cold pack that would have like raw vegetables, excuse me, canned fruit, and it's just overwrapped. So, and that's all done here at Central Kitchen. So these packages are sent out to the school. So our elementary server cashiers, they don't even have to prepare the food. So again, for COVID mitigation, it's perfect. And that makes it easier. Everyone wears gloves and masks and everything like that still, but that makes it easier than on the classroom delivery side of things, because there are these individual packaged items going to the elementary classrooms. So we're fortunate with that, but we've taken that concept of the overwrapped food trays, and we never really used them at the secondary level, but now at secondary, we have, of course, the in-person hot food like we normally would have. We have what Leslie mentioned, the clamshell, styrofoam clamshells that at the end of our service, we already have a curbside service for the remote learners. They're part of the district. They're just online, zooming in. They will come up to curbside and get hot food. We just go right off the steam table, put it into the clamshells and go right out, because it's all prearranged with the parents, and we go right out to the curbside and hand them just like fast food takeout. We also use the pre-wrapped, overwrapped hot packs and cold packs that we use at elementary. We also use those now at secondary levels to, like, for supper programs, or when the school is closed down because of COVID reasons and they're curbsiding everyone that wants to partake. they use those as a, a grab and go, and they'll reheat at home in their own ovens. So those are the variety of packaging we've been using. The secondaries kind of have to juggle a little bit with what is best and what their parents are wanting. But it's been working out so far this year. So we're happy.
Great, thank you. And this will actually bring up my last question, which was, have you seen an increase in participation once you started to implement meals in the classroom? Diane?
Okay. Again, with the secondaries, they don't eat in the classroom. So overall, we've seen a decrease in meal participation at the secondary levels, simply because there's not as many kids in school. There's a certain, and it changes every week of who's remote learning. Maybe their classroom was sent home because of COVID. So those numbers are down. But with the elementary, we saw a strange thing that had happened with the, but maybe not so strange, with the classroom eating, having that occur, especially for breakfast. We actually saw some breakfast numbers go up at some of these elementaries. In fact, some elementaries, I want to say like 4 or 5 of them actually have higher breakfast counts than they do lunch counts. And when we stopped and thought about it, we're like, well, that makes sense. This year breakfast is free for everyone. So these kids are hungry. They're grabbing a breakfast, even if they ate breakfast at home, but it's already an hour or so later, maybe longer, depending on how long it took them to get to school. And maybe they took their cold lunch from home, so they aren't participating in the cold meal service, or I'm sorry, the hot meal service we have for lunch, but they're certainly grabbing the breakfasts. So we had an increase in breakfast at elementary, and the lunch service, even though it is in the classroom, it's kind of stayed a little more steadier at the elementary level. I would assume some of them did go up a little, just because they went from a free reduced full pay status to everyone eats for free. So we did see a small amount of lunches go up for elementary, but definitely the breakfast in the classroom, they increased dramatically.
Thank you. Leslie, what have you seen as far as a increase in participation for your meal service in the classroom?
Well, I would say we were very fortunate to be on the increase side of it, which has, of course, helped our lunch program by just getting kids to eat more food. But yet the elementaries have pretty much, they're a little higher just because the meals are free. But as they're not eating in the classroom, like the one elementary school was, they're more all grab and go, and other than going to school and eating, which their numbers have probably raised a bit, but they're not like substantially higher like our middle and high school, because they are now that captive audience, and they can't leave. So and it's, they're being served in the classroom, and it's free. So there's no extra cost, and there's no, the stigma of eating is not there. It's like, oh, you're getting, well, everybody's getting it. So it's not there for that. So participation has definitely increased. And even like our Pacific High School lunch has even increased there due to, it's a closed campus for them. So they can't even leave campus once they get there. They have to stay due to the mitigation plans. But definitely our breakfast numbers have increased. But one of the high school says it's like the lunch is not increased because there's just not the choices. They're getting that grab and go meal, but even so, we've made it up with the breakfast numbers. So we're still getting a lot of food to kids. So more so than we were last year. And at the beginning, we were all open at the beginning of the school, and it was pretty up then. And then we went to remote, and we only delivered meals. So at that point, it's about the same. Even though we were serving to certain different kids, only the people that signed up got to have meals delivered. and we still stayed about pretty consistent for the number of meals we were delivering. And then when we went back to full open here in January, our numbers went up a little bit from what we used to serve in person, because I think we had communicated a lot with our parents over that time span of what to expect. You can continually sign up, and there's just, definitely every couple of weeks they were getting some sort of communication about, this is the plan. Now this is the plan. This is still the plan. This is the plan again, So they got a lot of communication from us, and kept telling us, like, if you need to change, if you need to add, if you need to whatever, you just let us know. And being the point of contact for that, was sort of my job, to make sure the right person was on the list and getting their meal. And then now that we've handed it back to the school level, it's again making sure that the kids are getting it, and just communicating that to everybody. So
Great. Thank you very much. Well, we're 1 minute over my time. So if you'd like to go ahead and if you have any questions, you're more than welcome to contact myself, Elizabeth Seitz, at the alaska.gov, or you can you can email me any questions that you might have. I see a hand raised. Oh no, that's never mind. That's my. But otherwise, I really appreciate Diane Russo with Matsuboro School District and Leslie Young with the Sitka School District for joining us today. And that is our session on best practices in the classroom.
all right.
You want me to share that thing from Leslie real quick? I thought we had 4 more minutes. I'm sorry.
I thought so too, but my little thing said 9:25.
Just use it next time, or use it for other things you got going on, or whatever. It's just something I use to kind of help organize myself.
So yeah, I
Alright,
love
we can
this.
do that.
Motivate, meal, cute. Motivate, jump into change and list your goals, exceptions, what can be done with the resources you have, announce, communicate your plan, leadership, identify the team, who will inform,
How will
how
information
will
flow?
information flow? Whew, it's still early. And then cute, compliance, follow the regulations, uniformity, keep it simple, but allow for flexibility, teamwork, work together to solve the problems, encouragement, appreciating those grinding and going
Beyond.
I like that. Well, thank you very much for you all joining me today.
Thank you for organizing this. You guys are the best.
Thank you. You guys have a great afternoon.
You too.
Thank you.